last week with Derek. We saw some of your work on the slideshow for Masterclass as well. So a lovely warm welcome for Harriet to come up from London. Hello. Let me know if you can't hear me. I tend to have a quieter voice, so if you just want to wave and just kind of go speak louder, let me know. It's nice to meet you. I've never been to Preston before, but it seems lovely so far. You guys have an amazing student kind of building, and there's a Starbucks as well. My uni never had that, so I'm very impressed. I'm going to be looking at my notes a lot because I'm a bit all over the place in my head at the moment, baby brain, so do excuse that. But I'll just start off by introducing myself. I'm Harriet. I'm a freelance illustrator. I live in South London with my husband and my cat. I've been illustrating for about 3 years now. Before that, I spent about 5 years not really knowing who I was or what I was doing, so we'll kind of get into that a little bit later. And yeah, so the main sort of thing I want to talk to you about is basically how I kind of got started and what sort of my process is as well, so we'll kind of go into that as well. I'm sort of known for kind of colourful, bouncy, dynamic sort of illustrations. I try and add a little element of humour to them, even if it's a little bit of a serious topic to it. I used to use a lot of paper. I now kind of mimic paper art as well, and I'll talk more about why I chose to do that as well. And what I want to say is I don't claim to have all the answers or that I've figured it out. I think being an illustrator, you're constantly figuring it out. You're constantly on a process of evolving and changing who you are. I think it'd be very boring if you're very stagnant. You're like, yes, this is it. I've got it figured out. This is where I'm going to stay now. And that's the really exciting part about illustrations. You're constantly evaluating your work as well. So don't feel pressured to have it figured out. Is basically the moral of what I'm going to talk about today. Perfect, yes, that's everything I've got to say on this slide. Nice, so yes, as I said, we're going to be talking about how I got started out, how it's going now these days, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight into my process as well, like how do I respond to a brief, and what the difference is between different kinds of briefs. So we'll start off with how I got started. Prepare yourself. I'm showing you really early work. A lot of illustrators like to show a very shiny, perfect, polished version that just arrived and I'm like this. But it's obviously a process. We all started from somewhere. We didn't sort of exit the womb being an amazing illustrator. So a lot of this work I never really show anyone. Normally I'd be really embarrassed to show. But I'm sure if you scroll back far enough on my Instagram, you probably see it anyway. Yeah, like I said, being creative is a process. It's a constant desire to improve and evolve, and your work kind of continues to change. Hopefully you'll also see there's no set route, there's no set time limit to achieve things. It's not like any other job, and I love that. I have a brother, my whole family is super academic, none of them do illustration or anything. My brother's an accountant, which is really handy when you get to the tax year and you're going to file your taxes. And he did an apprenticeship, he got a job, he's worked his way up to the next promotion, then he's going on to the next promotion. It's a very sort of set sort of job layout for him, and that's great, that works for him. What I love is that every illustrator has their own story, their own way of how they got into the industry. There's no guidebook on how to do it. Sometimes people are super lucky and they get one job straight out of uni and their career just rockets straight off. Some are like me, where I didn't really know what I was doing after uni. I didn't really know who I was or what I wanted to say. My career kind of took a curly-whirly route, but nevertheless, I'm still here. I'm still doing work that I love and really makes me feel fulfilled. So it's also fine as well. Perfect. So this is me. As I think I was probably about 7 years old here. This is how it all started. Like most of you probably, I always had a keen interest in like arts and crafts and painting and doing all sorts. I used to make little dolls' houses out of shoe boxes. I used to like collect leaves and paint on them, lots of like craftiness going along. And I always kind of had this sort of arty sort of interest, but coming from a family where both my parents were lawyers, they were very like studious, very like push for grades, I thought, right, this is what I've got to do. So went through my A-levels, I did I think English, classics, biology, loved it, and I was kind of good at it as well. And I thought that was the route I was going to go down. I was going to be a lawyer or something. I was going to follow what my parents were doing. And it wasn't until it got to the time when you had to choose what uni you wanted to do and write your personal statement that I had a bit of a breakdown. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if this is for me. Like, is this how I see myself, my life, how it's going? So I decided to take a different route. And I told my parents, I can't do this. I have to be creative in some way. And lo and behold, they didn't really mind what I did. They just wanted me to be happy and to do something that fulfilled me. So I went to Ravensbourne University, if anyone's heard of it. It's a media sort of uni next to Year 2 Arena. Really cool building. It's very mosaic, circle windows, very, very cool. And I studied animation there. Again, I thought animation was the route for me. I didn't really think I was ever good to do anything freelance out on my own, so I thought I should join an animation studio, you know, have that kind of security of a studio to look after me. And you know, I've heard of Industrial Light Magic, DreamWorks, all the kind of big ones, Frame Store, The Mill. I thought, okay, cool, maybe I could do animation. So I went down this whole route of being really heavily inspired by Tim Burton, and I did lots of stop motion, so kind of still very crafty. I had these little 3D printed heads that I experimented with, and it was great, but again, I really didn't ever feel like my itch had been scratched in a way. I didn't really feel like I was sort of on the right path. Just thought this is where I should be going to kind of get a job that I should get. Also, I wasn't that great at animation. A lot of physics and sort of gravity and how things react in terms to force, and some people just got it in my class and I just didn't. I could make things look good, but I couldn't make them move very well. So animation wasn't the route for me. And I graduated uni and I got a job, part-time job, and I used this time to just experiment, just to kind of see what I liked to draw. I loved faces and animation. There's a lot of life drawing. You're often drawing a lot of people and poses, and I was always drawn to people. I did a lot of like hyper-realistic drawings, like making illustrations look like photos, and I kind of did some more colourful work as well. And then one thing sort of made me switch path from just drawing portraits and just very representative drawings. My dad said to me after I showed him this, like, it's a really good drawing. It's like a really hyper-realistic picture of this, I think it was like a little dog or something. It looked like the photo. And he said, well, why don't you just take a photo? I was like, oh. I spent ages working on this. I'm really proud of it. And at the time, I was really like, huh? I was like, I can't believe you just said that. But thinking back now, it kind of sparked this idea in my mind. Like, why don't I just create these ideas? Why don't I create my own stories? Why am I just kind of observing and just copying and making it look good? I've always loved telling stories and animation. Why don't I just start creating my own work? So, there we go. This is when I started dabbling in like kind of storybook sort of style illustration. Very kind of heavily influenced by my time in animation. And again, I was just dabbling, just experimenting. You can see it kind of changes a lot, but there's a lot of drawings in between the previous photo and this one. But I wasn't putting too much pressure on myself just to, you know, get work immediately. I was just experimenting. I didn't really know who I was or where I was going. I just wanted to find something that I enjoyed drawing. And then things kind of took a different turn. They turned a little bit more kind of abstract, kind of sort of simplified as I went along. Again, I kept questioning myself, like, what do I like? What kind of fills my cup? What did I enjoy doing back in uni? And I really loved the life drawing aspect of it. I loved the angular shapes and poses and simplifying this into kind of shapes and colours and things. So I thought, okay, cool, I loved that. Let's do more of that. So I did a lot of like life drawing sort of style drawings, but really, really heavily simplifying them until I kind of got to something a little bit like this. And that was all going well, just aimlessly drawing, had my money coming in from my job, everything was fine, and then lockdown happened. Yay! At the time it was pretty scary, like the world was going to end, but it meant myself, like a lot of other people, we couldn't go to work, we were at home, we had a lot of time on our hands. So this was actually a time of a lot of like sort of deep sort of self-reflection. I kind of kept questioning what I wanted to do with my life. I had a lot more time to sort of think about it. So this was like a really heavy period of sort of experimentation. And a lot of time to figure out what kind of illustrator I wanted to be. So here we go. This is where I started experimenting with different materials. This is my little desk at home. Sorry if the picture's a little bit small. I try to fit as much as I could on one slide. So yeah, I started experimenting. I started using a lot of paper. I was trying to aim not to kind of copy what I saw on social media. I knew that I didn't want to be like everyone else, otherwise I'd find it really hard to stand out from everyone else. I'd have to be amazing and perfect in order to be kind of plucked out of the crowd. And at the time I saw a lot of kind of like clean, sort of vector style, isometric illustration. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Really cool style, really cool, but there's a ton of it. And I thought, I'm useless at that. No one's going to want me to do that. What do I enjoy doing? I love craft, I love paper, I love playing around with shapes and things. Let's stick with that. So I started spending a lot of money on paper. And started creating kind of like sets and things in our spare room. Experimenting with sort of shapes and things. And then photographing them in these sort of like almost like dioramas to sort of, again, tell stories. So yeah, a lot of working with paper, a lot of hand cutting with a little craft knife, a lot of blisters, a lot of calluses and things. A lot of paper stuffed into a lot of crevices in my home, which is still falling out of cupboards to this day. But I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of time to sort of play around and sort of experiment with compositions. Very time consuming though, because I was literally just cutting out lots of different pieces, and some compositions very simple, absolutely fine. Some were a little bit more complex and literally took me days and days and days to do. And sometimes it didn't work out and I'd have to just sort of throw everything away and just start again. So a lot of ups and downs of emotions with this. But overall, it was a really fun process. I didn't really know where these illustrations belonged. I just liked creating scenes, telling a story again, but I didn't really know where they sort of belonged, where they would end up. Why would anyone want me to illustrate anything like this? What would they be for? So I started thinking about different industries that I wanted to sort of be in. Did I want to be in editorial? Did I want to do more storybook stuff? Did I want to do kind of commercial and advertising? And honestly, I really still had no idea at this point. So kind of well into lockdown at this point. And then again, I started thinking about, well, what else did I like outside of illustration? Maybe I could kind of marry the two sort of interests or several interests together and kind of work from there. So I returned to the sort of the drawing board. So other than storytelling, drawing people, what else did I care about? I didn't want to draw aimlessly forever. I wanted to have a goal to sort of measure my sort of success against. And it came down to sort of subjects that I'd always found interesting in school. I did biology at A-level, loved it. I loved figuring out how all the cells interacted with each other, stem cell research, amazing things with that. So I thought, cool, I really love science. Let's do some more sciencey drawings. I love things to do with like health, learning how you can improve your health. I love, there's a lot to learn about women's health as well, a lot that hadn't been explored, a lot of articles I was reading and learning about that. And I love kind of relatable sort of lifestyle stories as well. So kind of my aim was, right, I want to educate and inspire people the same way I'd been inspired through science. But I wanted to do it in a humorous, funny way. Hence, I started creating some, I guess, semi sort of artificial fake briefs. I was aiming to create some biology posters that maybe could end up in a classroom somewhere or something and make some kids laugh. So I did one on the human skeleton, the digestive system, and the heart. So yeah, I started creating work that I wanted to be commissioned for, things that I wanted people to pay me to do. But I needed to prove that I could do it. So I started creating the work that I wanted someone to commission me for. And then from that, I started focusing. I knew what I wanted to do. I was inspired by science, lifestyle, people. So I started focusing a little bit more for. And I really loved the illustrations that I saw in magazines, like you know, the Sunday sort of insert on the Guardian or the Observer. I loved all the weird and wonderful ways people could represent an idea in a really simple way. So I thought, oh yeah, I'd love to do that. So this piece, I think, was for, again, all fake briefs that I created for, I think it was like men's mental health. So on the outside, pretending everything's fine. On the inside, oh my God, everything's going wrong. This one, I think, was for, I think it was about toxic masculinity. It's sort of arms with rips in it. And the text says, don't be such a girl, and you should man up on the weights as well. So sort of some kind of message there. This one, again, I'm really sorry if the images are small. It's a bunch of people on desks, but there's some sort of like see-through, transparent looking people sitting on opposite sides of the desks. And this was inspired about people kind of going back to work, kind of in hybrid working after COVID. So you have like different teams of people going in, some people working from home. So theoretically your teammates would be like ghosts working alongside you in the office. So again, all non sort of real articles that I was creating these illustrations for. This one was about, I think it was for sort of disability equality, sort of, I can't really remember too much about this one, this is a while ago now. But yeah, lots of gingerbread men with lots of different features. And I think this one, some friends playing Twister with some alcohol. I think this was inspired by my own interest in board games over lockdown, so kind of the rise of board games as sort of like social nights in. So yeah, lots of kind of portfolio building things. But yeah, you can kind of see that my style started to change, and it was all really kind of dictated by the method that I was using. I was doing a lot of cut paper, so it had to be simple, it had to be quite graphic, otherwise it would take me forever. I also kind of picked awareness days to do projects for, so things that I was passionate about. This was for breast cancer awareness. I can get it to play again. There we go. So this was all stop motion, so again inspired by what I did at uni. All very manual process. All of these people you can see were literally replacement parts and had to sort of swap them out and position them perfectly. And this was all done, I think this is my dining table. I had to sort of make sure the environment was super consistent, so I had to black out the room, have these studio lights, replace these parts bit by bit and take the photo and edit it later. So it was a long old process, but the real aim was to sort of shine light on these amazing causes that I was passionate about, and I wanted to see more kind of chatter about. So I created the brief for this. This one again was for Disability Awareness Month, and the theme for that month was, I think, equality of access. So a lot of buildings around the UK aren't built for people who have accessibility needs, a lot of stairs, not many ramps and things. So the little animation was to sort of shine a light on this sort of problem that we're having. So yeah, lots of cutouts, very messy, be very organised with paper. If you lose a leg or something, just got to create another leg. Yeah, it's very long old process, but I loved it, and I had a lot of time for it. So yeah, through this process, I created a portfolio filled with work that I'd love to get commissioned for. I've been sharing the work on my social media, shared the process. People really loved seeing the process of how this came together, all the cutting of the paper, all the sticking, all the behind the scene things. And I also at the same time, I was sending out the finished product as a portfolio to agents and studios that I wanted to work with as well. So a lot of emails. I never ever sent sort of a big wide group email with one sort of like, hey, come look at my work. It's quite a long process. I have a look at each studio and figure out, why do I want to work with them? Do they do the work that I want to get commissioned for? And if they did, great. I'd then pick out work that I liked that they'd commissioned in the past and create a little bit of a custom email. I'd say, hey, love the work that you did with so-and-so illustrator, really great cause here. Think I could do some great work with you as well. Here's why, blah, 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 blah. And then attach my portfolio deck as well. So long old process, but really, really worth it. People don't really want a kind of cast the net wide sort of email. It's very impersonal. It doesn't really show that you care. So took a lot of time sending a lot of emails. Didn't get a lot of emails back. The emails that I did get back were either really encouraging, maybe I'd get a job out of them later or so. So they really appreciated the time that took. Okay. Yeah, so nothing happened for a while. Casting the net, sending out lots of emails, posting a lot on social media. Not a lot happened for a while, and that could, that got me down sometimes. Thought, is there something wrong with me? Do people not like me? Am I in the wrong industry? Should I have been a lawyer? What should I have done? Questioning everything. And then one day, this new agency that was just starting out, called Studio Pi, contacted me. The main director, Sashini or Sash, she contacted me and said, I love your work, I'd love to showcase it to a bunch of people, get their opinion. If they all like your work, we'd love to take you on. I was like, oh my God, this is it. My career is made, I'm saved. And I thought I'd made it at that point. So yeah, they picked me up. She came from News UK, and I think they look after a lot of media, like the Times, a lot of newspapers and things. And yeah, they picked me. They wanted to represent me, and it really helped me at the time. I was struggling to get my foot through the door. People were either ignoring my emails or just saying no, because I didn't have a lot of professional work to kind of get me going. It was that sort of catch-22 situation. I also couldn't network because it was lockdown, so we were all at home, so I couldn't meet any people as well. So it was a tricky time. At least you can go out and you can speak to people now. And I got my first commission. This was for Stylist magazine. It was their cover. I think I have some more pictures here. Yes, There we go. And at this point, this is where it was highlighted to me that my workflow probably wasn't going to work in a professional setting. I was very careful, very methodical with my work. It took a very long time. Everything was very sort of handmade, taking photos, a lot of organisation, all the parts were in plastic folders. I think this is for a different job, but it just sort of highlights that everything had to be super organised. A lot of plastic folders. So yeah, I do the work, I cut it out, I take photos, edit it, submit it to the art director, go through the rounds of feedback, and then they would want to make a change. They go, oh, the colour of this, not sure I like that, let's change it to this. Placement of this, can we move it around a bit? And I was like, great, cool. I have to recut some paper out, reposition it, take the photo, send it on. So it was a lot of time invested in making these changes. And for some people, this works. There's a lot of paper artists that they manage to make it work, but for me, I'm very slow. Normal sort of deadlines for like editorial, they'd give you, write the brief, and then maybe 2 to 3 days, they want to see a sketch, then maybe another 2 to 3 days, they want to see a colour rough, and then 2 to 3 days the final. So you pretty much have maybe a week, start to finish, to get all of this done, plus all the changes they want to make. So I was putting a lot of time into just one single job. Also, having a cat, not so great. So he's a lovely long-haired domestic cat, really clingy, wants to get up on the table and just be a part of whatever you're doing. And even if you put him in another room, the cat hairs get everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So I had like a little tweezer, like just getting off all the cat hairs after I'd arranged everything, take the photo, take it into Photoshop, and then still see cat hairs, and then have to edit them out. So nightmare. So that wasn't ideal. Everything was super slow and complicated. I have hundreds of individually cut paper pieces at times, and I eventually invested in a paper cutter. It's like a Cricut thing. Amazing. It's like a printer and cuts out the paper for you. But still, it didn't help this sort of situation. And theoretically, I'd be getting, in the future, hopefully more and more of these jobs coming in, so I knew I wasn't going to be able to handle it. So how's it going now? What am I doing now? Well, now I do things digitally, but I love hand-cut paper. I love how things look kind of messy and imperfect, and the shadows and the depth. I didn't ever really want to move away from that. I wanted to kind of keep that sort of craftiness to my work. So I started, oh, I thought this was going to repeat. I'll just have to, there we go. Yeah, so I started experimenting with what I could do on my iPad, on my Mac. So I'd start off a sketch. I would then take it into Illustrator, and then I would then take that into Photoshop and start adding all of these sort of textures and sort of lighting effects, and adding all little sort of imperfections and where the paper bends in response to the light. So I could really get this sort of papery effect to my work. And it meant that I could turn around multiple pieces of work in a day. It was super quick, but I still wasn't losing that sort of like handmade sort of aesthetic that I really craved. Also, it's a little bit more of a predictable result as well. Sometimes art directors want you to use a specific colour palette, like the brand colours, and that's very hard to get when you're looking, you've got a choice of paper in your art shop, and they're like, cool, you've got one purple, one green, one yellow, and it's not quite the colours that you need, and you have to spend a lot of time tinkering around, editing the photo to get it to match the brand colours as well. So it was really important that I could get a predictable result. I won't talk too much about this, because all of this you can see on my social media as well, and I really want to show you some of the process to a brief as well. But then yeah, more jobs started coming in, mostly sort of editorial. Got to work with New Scientist, AOI. We did some of the branding for the illustrations for their website and social media. Some recent work there with the NSPCC and the New York Times. But yeah, all kind of featured things that I was interested in: people, lifestyle, relationships, science. There we go. More science. One of my favourite bits of work, which was for Give Your Fanny 5 campaign with the Lady Garden Foundation. It's all about educating about checking you downstairs and seeing what was normal. Something I was really passionate about. Mental health, sort of workplace equality, all things that I was really, really passionate about. And I'm really confident that if I hadn't created all of those personal kind of fake briefs in the past, I wouldn't have attracted the kind of work that I'm getting now as well. So even that work that I'm sort of embarrassed to show, it's all paying its way now, so it's still carrying on getting the work that I want, if that makes sense. Sorry, like I said, I don't have a way with words at the moment. So yeah, initially this is what I thought my career would be like, exiting uni. Like that. I'd get my job, or I'd get represented by the agency. It's like, great, I've made it. My career is taking off. That's it, done. And the work is just going to snowball in. Sometimes it does for people, and that's great. Most people, it's a bit like this. So yeah, to kind of illustrate that, probably my first illustration job, thinking, great, I've made it, and then not getting jobs for a while, and it kind of goes back down, expectations. Oh, I've got another job. I could probably make a career out of this. I'm going to get paid loads, and then the budget not being great, and going, oh, okay, maybe I need a bit more work coming in to support myself. So back down again. Up again, getting a really amazing job, but down again when I realised they're a bit of a nightmare client to work with. They want to make loads of changes. They aren't ever happy. Your agent's going, it's not you, it's them. That they can be a difficult client, and thinking, oh gosh, is this what it's like to work with people? So expectations going down again. Getting more and more work, kind of getting work for like Adobe and like big companies, thinking, wow, I've made it, and then again, no spots, quiet spots with work as well. So it can be very, very up and down, but I think if you look back and continuously look back and just evaluate about how far you've come, you will see a kind of general upwards trend, but there's just it's a hell of a roller coaster on the way, which is fun, it keeps it exciting, it's not predictable. But if you have the grit, the determination to keep going even after those sort of downward sort of slopes, you'll get there at some point. So how I illustrate. So this part is about how I would respond to a brief. I tend to sort of get rid of my ideas very quickly to kind of clear up storage on my iPad, but I did find this that I'd saved from the AOI brief. This brief, I think, had several stages, but normally, most briefs I get, there's about 3 or 4 rounds before you get to the final thing. So normally, they'd ask for some sketches in response to like maybe the article they've sent you, rough pencil sketches, then some like colour ideas, like a rough colour sketch, and then the final drawing. Sometimes before they want to make some other changes, it depends on the brief. And this one was quite unique, so hopefully it'll still be useful. So yeah, AOI came to me and they said, we want some branding for our website and when we send out emails, when we send out stickers and notebooks and things, and we'd love them in these different categories, like support, advice, contracts, community, rights and protection. The audience was professional illustrators, emerging graduates and students, and working with agents, art colleges, all of that. So wrote all of that down in their big sort of long brief they sent to me, simplified it just for myself. And then this one, because they wanted me to do several illustrations for different topics, I've picked a set of ideas that I drew up for the idea of contracts and how the AOI help you with advice, with contracts and licensing and things. So this is the topic that I'm going to show you. So they wanted, I think, 4 rounds. So before I even started drawing, they just wanted me to write down the ideas of where I thought I was going. So this is what I wrote down. Person looks like an explorer using a compass. With, north-south arrows are a pencil and a paintbrush looking through a contract like a map. So the idea is about navigating through illustration contracts. Another idea is a person slam dunking a contract through a basketball hoop. You like bossing contracts. And then similar to another idea, a person is surfing a wave, which is actually a contract effortlessly. So these were like 3 ideas I positioned to them. And normally before this, I would do a bit of word association. So I'd write down lots of words that would come to my mind when I think about contracts and words and licensing, and then think of just like funny things, like just a bit of sort of mindless sort of thinking about funny sort of situations I could create out of this. So my springboard is usually humour. Then the second round is to draw up these ideas. They really liked the navigating the contract like a map, and they really liked the surfing the contract sort of idea. So these were really kind of rough sketches that I sent to them, and then they needed to pick which one they liked. I drew it in blue. I think this is an old sort of animation habit. Normally animators would, in the past, draw everything in blue, because when you were hand drawing everything, if you drew it with black and then photocopied that drawing, only the black pencil would show up, so I still draw everything in blue. It's nicer on the eyes as well. And then the third round was refining this and the kind of the colour rough. So they picked the idea with the compass and the magnifying glass. So we want that idea. Can we see the colour palette? So I'd send it to them like this. The way I've kind of composed the ideas as well in this sort of like slide, I'd always send ideas like this as like a deck. I'd never just send them random JPEGs, because it's harder for them to see what you're trying to achieve. Sometimes you can write a little description about what the idea is about. So I'd always sort of send it in like a keynote slide. It looks a bit more professional as well. And then this is the final work. I think with feedback, with the other drawings that I was doing and presenting to them, they wanted to make sure it was really diverse as well. So we changed the skin colour. We changed the kind of colour palette of the background to make it lighter, so it kind of stood out a bit more. And that was the final thing. So yeah, back and forth, back and forth. I used to get really almost like personally offended when an art director would go, oh, can we change this? Or change the background colour, and I thought it was like, oh God, I'm not good enough. But over time I sort of realised, no, this is normal. Like obviously you both want to get to a goal together, so you're working together, not against each other. So that was one way that I would work. So I would write ideas down, send a colour, rough sketch, send a colour sketch, and then send a finished artwork. But the reality, most of the time, most work I do is editorial, so most of the time I'm reading an article and trying to understand what the message is and pick out themes and what the sort of the objective of the illustration is. So these are sort of other steps I normally take with an illustration. So this is an article that I got a while ago, and I would just read through it several times and highlight things that sort of stood out to me. So like, oh, this would make a really great image, or maybe I could bring this out more and really exaggerate this idea. So I just spent a bit of time highlighting words, really, reading it through several times, and just sometimes just staring out the window, just trying to ideas come to me. And I'd highlight maybe key facts or like key themes that I think that the article is about and what they really want me to sort of highlight. So yeah, lots of reading, lots of highlighting. And then the next one, this is a completely different brief, but this is usually my next step after an article. is that word association that I'm talking about. So this one was for, I think it was like period tracking apps. Oh yeah, so I was trying to come up with, I think this was a personal brief on period tracking. I wanted to do more stuff about women's health, so even now I'm still doing personal briefs all the time, just so I can continue to kind of get the work that I want. So I've got words there like functionality, convenience, benefits, privacy, security. Then I've got calendars, just lots of sort of imagery and symbols that sort of come to me when I'm thinking of this subject. Confidence, powerful, supported, and then sort of ideas that kind of come off that, like hugs, hand holding, strength, hand gestures, shopping for information, trolley, just kind of going from one word to another to another to another, so I can just kind of gather up all these ideas and wrangle them into something and create an idea. And then, I think this is a video. Yes, this is maybe the next step. I gather lots of reference images. When I'm not really super comfortable with maybe a topic or poses or things, I spend a bit of like time doing my own life drawing again. Gather lots of images from Google and just use them again as a springboard. I never really want to copy, but I just want to get sort of ideas for maybe how people stand, what people wear, or yeah, general sort of ideas like that. And then I will sort of refine. Ooh. Does it work? Yeah, there we go. We're going to play again. Then I sort of refine it into like a stick man, simplify it again and again, sort of lots of iterative sort of drawing, simplifying and simplifying until I'm happy with sort of the final sort of style. So that's sort of generally the process. So after I've done those sketches, I kind of hop back onto the process that I showed you with the AOI brief. I do a colour sketch, and you might notice with that colour sketch it's quite rough. There you go, it's like just literally blobs of colour, because I just want to see how colours interact with each other on the page and how they stand out. So it's never really like doing the full illustration, it's more just blobs. And that gives them the idea of how it's going to look as well. Then I do the sketch, and then I would do the final sort of paper style drawing. So I kind of want to end on some resources that I found useful along the way. Spoken a little bit about AOI, I've done a lot of work with them, but I genuinely have found them useful throughout my career as well. When I was starting off, even just reading my contract with my agency, I didn't know what I was reading, I'm not the best reader, so just having a look at what things are normal to ask for, what's not normal in contracts on their website, super useful. Love all the events they do, lots of meetups and things, so that was always really, really useful throughout my career, still useful to this day. They do a great session on tax advice as well, so I highly recommend that. But I always have trouble to this day coming up with colour palettes. I find it really difficult. It's probably the longest stage of each illustration for me. I try and do different colour palettes each time for each brief, depending on the mood and the message of the illustration, which means I'm coming up with a lot of new colour palettes all the time. So the following 3 resources are all to do with finding colour palettes. Really good for sort of graphic design as well, but for illustration, amazing. So Colours Cafe, this is an Instagram. They are constantly churning out new colour palettes all of the time, and they include the hex codes. They have this lovely representation of how the colours interact with each other as a sort of semi-illustration. And they do nice challenges as well. Every now and again they're like, Valentine's Day challenge. Do a drawing with this kind of pinky, purpley, red colour palette, and then they kind of showcase everyone's, and it's really interesting to see how everyone interprets the same colour palette in a different way as well. So it's just a fun little page as well. Adobe Color. This is a website. I think if you just Google Adobe Color, I can't remember the web address, it will come up, and it will show you kind of trending color palettes for like fashion photography, again, graphic design, illustration. It will post a lot of pictures that I think people have uploaded, so they've opted to share their colour palettes and kind of simplify the work into their kind of main colours. I don't use this one too much because I don't really like to sort of take colour palettes directly from someone's work. I like to sort of have a look at what's out there and kind of borrow bits here and there and then come up with my own sort of unique recipe. But it can sometimes be a really nice sort of like little spark of inspiration, like, oh, that's an interesting use of colour, like this colour and this colour, who knew that it would work together? So again, if you're kind of in a bit of a creative rut, it's nice to just kind of look through other people's work and see how they've used colour as well. And then last one, Adobe Capture. This is really cool. This is one of my favourite apps. So it does many things, but one of my favourite parts of it is it will capture colours from your environment and create a colour palette from it. So you just like hover your camera over somewhere and it will just like pick up colours. You can drag your finger if you like a particular colour, take a picture and freeze frame it, and it will give you the hex code. It will allow you to edit it, make it brighter or darker, and then you can save it to your colour palettes that you can take straight into Illustrator or Photoshop as well. So that's my favourite app. But yeah, that's everything. So that's my career so far. Like I said, I still don't have it figured out. I'm still figuring it out. My career has been very curly-whirly, and that's great, that's fine. It keeps things interesting. It's all right if it takes you a little bit longer. You get there eventually. So I think now we might have a little bit of time for Q&A, possibly, if anyone's got any questions on that.
What would your dream commission be? If you're writing lots of self-initiated briefs, who would be your dream client or your dream project?
That's a good question. I should probably think about that more. I would say, I think one of my keen passions is women's health. So I'd love probably to work with like Copperfield or breast cancer awareness, I think. Like things that sort of affected me sort of personally in my life with people I've known. I think, yeah, probably those two companies, but those are sort of causes that I'd probably really, as opposed to like specific clients, I think those are the sort of causes that I would love to work with. Yeah, I generally think more needs to be chatted about and talked about with women's health generally, so I think anything that I can do to kind of support that cause, then probably, yeah, so yeah, maybe like Copperfield or breast cancer awareness, yeah. Yeah.
I loved your Lady Guardian project, and I think it's such an important topic so far, and I was just wondering if you got any backlash for being like too much from the client, or whether they would just go for it.
They will go for it.
Yeah.
It was great. I normally for a brief, I will come up with 3 sketches, because that's like a nice number for them to choose from. For that one, I went completely off the rails. I drew like 10 different ideas and loads of different like crazy poses and different ways women can check themselves, like at the gym or just after tennis and things. And they really were very open from the very beginning. They were like, we just want you to kind of let loose, just go for it. The idea was to be very sort of like tongue-in-cheek, very sort of attention-grabbing anyway, so they really liked sort of the going for it idea. So I never really had any pushback at all. I don't really know how far they would have let me go, honestly. Yeah, it was sometimes you do get clients who are very like, just do what you want, and they just sort of let you go, and some people are very much like, we want it to look like this colour palette with this sort of kind of positioning, and they're very sort of directive, so it can change, but luckily they were super open.
You were talking about how it's been difficult to find what you want to do. Would you like take it back, or are you glad that it was hard work to get where you are now?
Yeah, I think it's like hindsight is amazing, isn't it? Because it just almost seems like obvious when you look back, like, oh, of course I was going to end up here, like doing this and this and this. It was almost like a step by step, like step one, do this, step two, do that. So in a way, it does look like everything was chronological, even though it did take a while for me to get there. It's hard to say, really. It's hard to say because I don't know if I went down a different route, would I have ended up where I am now? Would I have ended up with the clients that I've worked with and the projects that I've gone? I think if I could have done something differently, I would have maybe, when I was at uni, experimented a little bit more. So you guys are in a wonderful place, you know, you've got the time to really sort of just figure out who you are. I very quickly sort of funneled myself into, I'm going to work for an animation studio, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because that's what I think I should do. And I didn't really focus on anything else at all. I just sort of picked one thing and ran with it. Whereas really, I think maybe if I'd maybe taken a different course or outside of my study time, just dabbled a little bit more in different things, then maybe I would have landed on where I was eventually going to land on a bit earlier. Okay, I'm here now, so basically in answer to your question, I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I see you're working digitally now in terms of the paper cut work. Do you ever kind of go backwards and forwards between the two, the analogue and the digital, and kind of mix that up a little bit? And how important was understanding that analogue side of it? How much did it enhance the digital side of it?
Yeah.
And vice versa?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, I definitely still go back to analogue now. I still have all my paper, I still have my Cricut machine, and sometimes clients do ask for specifically paper, and the timeline sort of allows it as well. So recently I was talking about doing a pop-up book, which would have been great, like it was about vaccines and whooping cough and things, but it was like in a fun paper book sort of style. So I think it's always important to kind of keep that going alongside, so when I have time for experimentation, keep with the paper stuff, because it does, you're right, it does teach you more about the sort of digital side of things. So yeah, I would say if I hadn't done all that paper work to begin with, I wouldn't know what I was looking for in terms of a look with my digital stuff. So the way I wanted there to be little rips in the corners, and the way that the paper bends and then picks up a different shadow, and the way shadows sort of stretch out in terms of like the angle of where the light is coming from. If I just sort of went into that straight away, I probably would have come out with something maybe a little bit more basic, a little bit more kind of digital looking, possibly. So yeah, I think it's nice to kind of keep going back and forth, because it does teach you one thing.
Yeah, one.
Yeah, about the other.
Sports the other, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I'm glad I did paper, and I still, when I have time, would love to do more kind of organic sort of handmade work.
It's interesting you say sometimes a client will ask specifically for paper.
Yeah.
And of course, a pop-up book is a different thing, the physicality of it, rather than the digital aspect.
Yeah, exactly. Real kind of challenge, yes. And that's why I think on my website I still have all my paperwork on there, because I still want to be commissioned for that kind of work, but it needs to be the kind of timeline that allows it. So I know that I'll never really want to do an editorial piece where it's like a week turnaround time with paper, but if it's like a commercial piece where maybe they give you a couple of months to do it, like the pop-up book, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. You get really nice, different, even with what I do digitally, I still look at it and go, it's not paper, it's just not the same.
Well, there's another skill, you talked about the skill set in literally photographing a piece of paper, obviously more than a piece of paper,
Yeah.
but the difficulties in that in terms of getting the light right, all the artifacts that can appear in the
Yeah.
image, getting that stuff before you even get to the actual image is a skill set in its own right as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a lot of like photography, sort of a lot of editing sort of skills that come into play there as well. So it's a lot of time and effort. But again, it pays off. I think sometimes things, like a very cliche saying, things that are more difficult are always a bit more sweeter. So yeah, I have a soft spot in my heart for paperwork.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, with some of your more sensitive work that you've done with the women's health issues and stuff, have you ever had issues sharing that work on Instagram or Twitter or anything because of the censorship rules, and how do you kind of get around that?
That's a good question, yeah. Luckily, I haven't. And I think it would be a shame if I did. I know some people have had issues with their work, like there's like nipples showing and things, and I think that's really sad, because the message of what people are trying to communicate is, you know, it's either educational, it's either empowering, it's all for a good cause, and yet being censored. So I think if I ever had that issue, I would fight to have that work shown, not because it's sort of like, you know, I want my work to be shown, but because I genuinely believe in the message that it's communicating. So whether it's contesting with like Instagram or whatever social media I'm using, yeah, I'd fight for it, or find another way of going, hey, you like go over here, you can see my work, or, you know, finding some other way. I think it's really important to kind of fight for what you believe in, which is something that I'm kind of realising more and more as I kind of go through my illustration career. Thanks. Good question.
I was wondering if there's been one piece of advice that you've been given, or piece of advice that you've been given that's completely changed the way that you work, or just anything.
Oh, that's completely changed the way I've worked. What do you think? That's a cool question. I think it's more just like, again, this is probably going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but no one really has it figured out. I think that when you look at people's work on their portfolios, on their websites, on their like Behance, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, classic with social media, everyone's presenting the best version of themselves, and they're posting the finished product most of the time, or, you know, the parts of behind the scenes process that they want you to see. They don't share so much about the, you know, the times you've got rejected, the times you've put like a job together and you've, you know, done a pitch, you've sent it to someone and you're like, oh yes please, and then it doesn't pan out. And that happens so often, and I thought it was only happening to me. Something wrong with me. And just listening to other illustrators do talks and things, and then sharing exactly the same thing, and realizing, oh no, we're all going through this together. And it's some people are braver to share that than others. Some people want to just show the highlights, which is, you know, absolutely up to them. So I think that everyone's figuring it out. We don't all have the answers, and sometimes, yeah, things don't work out, and that's okay. So I think that's why I really wanted to sort of shape what I'm talking to you about today around that message, because I think that's what sort of made me sort of breathe a sigh of relief a little bit more, like, oh, okay, I don't have to be perfect, it's okay. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Thank you, Harriet. Does someone have a question that I must? No.